Now, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing an ally and a friend who's been working in the field of environment and environmental protection for a very long period of time. That is the U.S. Administrator, Gina McCarthy of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And I call her a friend because she has come into the post of administrator, but she's also been in the trenches at the EPA for a very long time and has always really talked about common sense public health policy approaches and has always made a space at the table for community voices to be heard and for those in the environmental justice movement to be heard. But Gina McCarthy is the administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. She was appointed by President Obama in 2009 as assistant administrator for EPA's Office of Air and Radiation. And she has been a leading advocate for common sense strategies to protect public health and the environment. She has worked at both the state and local levels on critical environmental issues and helped coordinate policies on economic growth, energy, transportation, and the environment. Gina received her Bachelor of Arts degree in social anthropology from the University of Massachusetts at Boston and a joint Master's of Science in Environmental Health, Engineering, and Planning at the Policy Institute from Tufts University. And when you hear Gina come to the stage, you will come to the mic, sorry, you will actually be very clear that she is from Massachusetts, the great Commonwealth state. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce U.S. Administrator of the EPA, Gina McCarthy. So welcome her with a round of applause, please.
Hello, everybody. First of all, Cecil, thank you for the introduction. And I'm really happy to be here. I've had a great trip. Judith, are you here? I've been touring with Judith Enck, some of the Superfund sites. I always go to the most exciting places when I get out of the office. If you don't know Judith, she is here and she's going to help us work on some of these issues together. And she's a great champion in our region. She's the regional administrator here, and it's always a pleasure to spend time with her. Oh, okay. Thanks. Oh, I can see better. There we go. First of all, I want to thank Peggy, who isn't here, but she's a great champion of the issues that we all care about. And it's interesting that lunch is following, so I will not ramble. I'll actually get you out on time because I know that as the weather gets colder, we got to stock up on food to keep ourselves healthy. But I do want to thank We Act for Environmental Justice. They are an incredible organization that has been around for a long time, doing work that is really vital. It's vital to our health, and it's vital to our economy. I want to thank Columbia's Center for Environmental Health, as well as the Milano School of International Affairs, Management, and Urban Policy for pulling this group together. And I know there'll be lots more folks here again tomorrow, so if you see folks that aren't here tomorrow, if you see folks tomorrow that aren't here today, give them my best, will you? Tell them I'm sorry that I missed them. If I could have been here tomorrow as well, I would have. But I think we're here, I know, to talk about healthy homes, but to me that also means we're here essentially to talk about healthy families and healthy kids. And the sad truth is that environmental health improvements are still sorely needed in so many communities, and that goes for both urban and rural areas all across this country. Because while I'm proud of the tremendous work that EPA has done, on average, to address the issues that are most important to all of us about keeping our kids healthy and safe, we have a tremendous amount of work to go to focus our resources effectively to make sure that everybody has equally benefited from the work of EPA and to take those extra steps we need to make sure that that's the case. And we know that low-income families, tribal populations, as well as communities of color, continue to be, in many cases, disproportionately impacted by pollution. And that is the issue that has to change. That pollution becomes a barrier, not just to our health and our well-being, but it becomes a barrier to our economic opportunity. It becomes a barrier to middle-class security. And these are issues that this president has identified as gaps of opportunity that he wants everybody in his administration to step up and begin to address more effectively. You know, at EPA, it's always been our duty, it's our mission, to protect public health and the environment, and it's largely been a result of identifying where vulnerable populations are. What are the key issues that we need to address? And this is what we define as environmental justice. In those areas that become narrower and narrower, but in many ways more profound, as we've gotten better at addressing issues on average. And when I think of protecting kids, I think back on some of the successes of the agency and what's the work left that needs to be done. So let's talk a little bit about lead, because not so long ago, lead was everywhere. In our gasoline, coming out of our smokestacks, in our water as a result of the pipes, and in our paints. But science then showed us that lead ain't so good. It has significant impact on our children. And as a result of that, EPA took the research that we developed, and we took that understanding and we took action. And we got lead out of gasoline, and we're getting it out of our smokestacks. And we've made a huge difference across the United States and frankly across the world on that issue. Because as we all know, EPA has leading scientists that provide information, and not only the US EPA takes action, but the rest of the world very often listens and takes action themselves. But the last step we have is really to continue to address those pipes, as we have to do, but also to get it out of our homes. Now that we know, we have a responsibility to figure out how to get this work complete, because it's been lingering in our homes for far too long. And in some cases, it continues to be a perpetual problem for the kids in this country and many communities. So many of you in this room have advocated for continued work, for change, and you've done all of the legwork that we needed to be able to gather the momentum across the United States to not only develop the science, but to effectively take actions. And I think we all know that kids have been dramatically made safer because of the actions that we have all taken together. The concentration of lead in our worst affected kids' bloods, ages 5 and younger, has dropped 88% since 1976. So that kind of progress is possible, but it's only possible if we work together, and we need to now focus on that last 12%. And that last 12% is very much what this conference is all about. It's getting into the homes in which our kids are living so that we can make sure that we provide a safe environment for them, whether it's the outdoor air or the indoor. And that kind of progress, again, is only available to us if we work together. So today, I want to just talk about a little bit of the work we have coming up. I love to talk about how far we've come, because many people forget that the EPA is actually important, and we want to continually remind them of that. But I also want to make sure that as we're looking at our agenda moving forward, we don't put check marks beside any issue until it's not 88%, but it is 100%, because those 12% still matter. Those 12% matter. So let me talk about a few things, and I'll highlight some of EPA's efforts, and then I'll ask your help to continue to work with us to protect those most vulnerable and to speak for those who often don't have a voice that can be heard. and to identify the places where we need to actually focus all of our attention. Because the facts remain clear that contaminants in our homes, whether it's lingering lead, whether it's pesticides, whether it's mercury, whether it's mold, whether it's cleaning supplies that aren't as green as they need to be to protect our children, they can make our kids sick. And especially when you recognize that 1 out of 10 kids in the United States continue to be suffering from chronic asthma. That is a number that nobody should tolerate, and everybody should be asking themselves, with all this great progress that we have made, why is that number like that? There needs to be more done. And we know that it's not just about outdoor air or things that we can handle nationally. A lot of this is about the hard work that needs to be done to get everybody and all those kids where they need to be. And it's often a result of environmental factors. I don't think genetically we have changed dramatically. I'd like to think we're a little smarter, but that's about it. I think that genetically is not where we need to look for many of the cures of the ills that we see. A lot of it is coming from environmental factors, and a lot of those factors contribute to higher rates of asthma in certain areas. We know this. What are those areas? Those are usually areas of low income and communities of color. Can we put all this together, folks? Can we talk about what the president says about getting people the health care they need? But can we also match this with, let's not make them sick in the first place? So let's spend as much time talking about that. And then we have the complexity of climate change, which with their warming temperatures, that really can make all of this challenge much more difficult. It can lead to more pests being bred. Guess what happens then? More pesticides are being applied. It can worsen black mold. I mean, I don't have to say too much more when I'm in New York City and Hurricane Sandy happened. Do I have to say more about the challenge that we face with climate change and the environmental risks that come with it? And not to mention the safety of our homes, just in terms of rising seas. And all of the violent storms we're seeing, everything from Buffalo being buried in snow and lives lost, to the challenges in California, which, hallelujah, it's raining in California. First time, actually, since I actually last visited there. I should go there more often. It actually rained a little when I was there a couple of times ago. The challenges that we face are enormous, and I need everybody speaking up on this. I need the tent under climate change to be large, because if we do that, our voices will be heard. These challenges will become more evident, and we can work on these issues together. You know, for our kids, the environment really shapes their success, their ability to be successful. Ailments like asthma lead to missed school days. Not just for the kids, but it's about missed school days for the parents. I mean, missed work days for the parents. That does not help in terms of their ability to make ends meet if they're struggling in the first place. It means higher health care costs. It even means lower lifetime earnings. And Dr. Ken Olden, who is really a champion at EPA's National Center for Environmental Assessment, he likes to say, genes load the gun, and environment pulls the trigger. If you think about it that way, then we don't just need to get the guns out of people's hands, we need to get the bullets out, right? We need to stop those guns from being able to be fired. And really, environment is so critical in this effort. And the good news is, time and again, when we've taken action, it has actually worked. Exposures have been reduced. And that's why we need to really focus our attention together. And we need to focus on communities where that focus is most necessary, where the need is the highest. EPA is working with both CDC and HUD on its Healthy Homes initiative. You know why that's really important? Because all of us need to step back and look at our own infrastructure and what we do, not just to fix problems, but what we're doing that actually contribute to those problems. We need to really rethink the way we do business. And I couldn't be more pleased with the partnerships that we are creating with the other agencies to step back, take a deep breath, and say, what does a healthy home mean? How do we move these initiatives forward together? I also am very excited that they have a whole lot more money than we do, because EPA likes nothing more than to spend other agencies' money so that we can get our mission done. Think of it that way, folks. Hang out with rich agencies. No, they're not rich. But they have incredible resources, not just in terms of their own personnel and their mission, but if we can join forces to make all of our missions come to life, I think it will be helpful for everybody, and it also allows you folks one meeting to raise an issue where everybody needs to engage. So through a recent enforcement action, this is another way that we're doing it, so it's not just healthy homes, but through a recent enforcement action that I really loved. Cynthia Giles, who's in our enforcement office, is an incredibly creative thinker. But she worked with Lowe's, you know, like Home Depot, Lowe's. Lowe's was having some difficulties in terms of enforcement, and she worked with Lowe's on lead removal. And what she did was she made sure that all of the contractors that Lowe's was going to work with would be lead safe certified moving forward. That they would never do business to support work where they were actually, their contractors weren't lead certified because too many problems were coming up. And Cynthia said, now that I have you at the table, let's talk about something else you might be able to do. Did it hurt them in any way? No. Can it help everybody? Absolutely. And when a major retailer like that sets the stage for what they want a contractor to do to be ready to work with them, and they say, you have to take care of our kids by doing it this way, the rest of the contractors listen. They want to be eligible for this work. It means we're taking it seriously in how we all do business. That can make a huge difference. So we are trying to get them actively involved, not just in doing their mission, which is to make money on this work, which is fine, but to help do our mission at the same time. Both of us benefit from that. And on indoor air, we're providing technical guidelines for building professionals. Let's get them to the table more and more to make sure that they weatherize homes correctly. We offer information and tips on our website on keeping mold under control. We work and answer those questions all the time. It can be done. And with weatherization, you better make sure it does get done. You better make sure that you do it right. And we do a lot of work on integrated pest management. Do we do enough work on pesticides? We do a lot of work on pesticides. There is more work to be done, and we know it, because we have to help prevent pests like cockroaches and mice from getting into our homes in the first place, so that we don't have to apply pesticides in the first place, and we can reduce the asthma and allergy triggers that also are a result of pesticide exposures. Now, we work with cities and states to help them offer services to manage childhood asthma. It's one of actually my favorite initiatives. I've been working on this for a while because it is done primarily out of our Office of Air and Radiation. I went to my hometown in Boston to celebrate some of this work and point it out, because as the Affordable Care Act is in place, I want to make sure that everybody just doesn't have an ability to have their kids treated for asthma when they are gasping for breath. I would like to make sure that those mothers and fathers know the asthma triggers in their own home and get advice on how to take care of those so their kids don't end up in the emergency room or in those hospitals. And earlier this year, at President Obama's direction, EPA took action to actually address some of not just those issues, but our broader issues, the broader issue of climate change. Because we know that it's a combination of getting good health care, preventing disease from happening in the first place, working with our communities, knocking on every door of every kid, every parent who has asthma, and providing those services to them which they so desperately need. But it's also about recognizing that in the face of that, you have issues like climate change that can actually exacerbate all of these problems. And so he went out in front and he talked about the government's moral responsibility to protect our kids. He didn't say legal. He knew it was legal. We all know there are legal responsibilities, but he's stepping up and talking as a father about issues that are important to him, to his kids, to his families, and he's acknowledging that the federal government needs to step up and take action. That's why he told EPA to do a clean power plan. Now, you may think that has nothing to do with the work you do. It has everything to do with the work you do. Because our proposal, interestingly enough, is not just about the U.S. stepping up and providing leadership. The U.S. also working with New York City and others to work on resilience. And I want to thank Judith for making sure that as we're rebuilding things, we're rebuilding them to be resilient. If you have a wastewater treatment facility underwater, it is not a pleasant sight and it doesn't work very well. Let's not rebuild it the same way, or else guess what will happen? Isn't that the definition of insanity, I think, actually? So we're bringing those issues to the table and recognizing that we need to change the way we think about these things. But the president also knew if we took domestic action, it would prompt an international response. Lo and behold, you saw just a short time ago that China stepped up to the plate. And don't let anybody tell you that isn't a historic announcement. It is historic because it's going to help us drive innovation to the table. It's going to be a completely different picture for renewable energy moving forward and our ability to avoid some of the higher carbon sources of energy that all of us know not only contribute to climate change, but contribute soot, contribute smog to our lives, particularly in our urban areas, but also in our rural communities. And our Clean Power Plan will actually address this carbon pollution that's fueling climate change from our power sector, but it's also going to have a significant reduction in dangerous pollutants that lead to smog and soot. So we will have a direct health benefit, not just a long-term benefit moving forward. And it's those pollutants that drive asthma attacks. It is those pollutants, if your kids are outside, that they're going to end up gasping for breath. And in 2030 alone, this plan is estimated to avoid up to 100,000 asthma attacks every year starting that year. We are talking about perhaps a 25% reduction nationally in these types of pollutants. These things matter. They don't just matter for our kids, but they matter for our elderly. They are going to cut 2,100 heart attacks out every year by 2030. So these things are dramatically important. It's dramatically important work that we need to address. But as important as all this big picture is, I also know where the rubber meets the road. I also know that it's not about talking big thoughts or putting out big rules, it's getting them done. And I also know that much of the work we need to do is community level work, because that is where I actually started my career. I never grew up thinking I was ever going to have the honor of being the administrator of EPA. I was real happy to be in the trenches because you could see what you were doing. I spent 11 years working at the local level on community health issues. I spent a lot of time talking to individuals and families about what they could do themselves and what they needed to press government to do moving forward so that their families would be able to grow up with safety and with health. And I know the work that you need to do moving forward. And I want you to know that EPA will not just continue to be a partner in this effort, whether it's looking at these issues on the national level in headquarters or through our great regional offices that are reaching out. but we want to actually very much expand the work that we do. I think we do a great job addressing these things nationally, but frankly, I am so excited about EPA becoming a larger part of the fabric of community work. Because whether or not we have the authority to address it, we have a voice that needs to be brought to the table. So whether it's us or somebody else that can step up, we can make those marriages work. We can make those issues more visible. We can work together to get the energy we need to protect our kids, because I don't care whether you're Republican or you're Democrat. I really don't. I don't care if you live in an urban or rural area. The minute you have a child, your life revolves around making them healthy, making them happy, making sure they have the same benefits that you enjoyed growing up. And all of us can join around those efforts, I think, and work together in a way that we have never done before, and that's the challenge. And I have a lot of faith that we can actually do that. I have faith that we can prioritize in the communities that need it most. I have faith that we have voices that we can join together so that even if you can't do it and I can't do it, we can find someone who comes to the table that can. I do it because I think we've been doing this for a long time. The question now is, how do we get more focused? But I keep reminding people that EPA didn't just happen yesterday. It happened 43 years ago, and if you look at the dramatic change in our lives in those 43 years, you will see that we have been a catalyst for great things, that we have shown that a strong economy needs to be built on a strong environment. It does not actually need to be a balance of two things that might conflict, but frankly, you cannot have one without the other. And I don't think people want one without the other in this country. And I know that we have had legendary people involved in the work of EPA over the last decade. And I'd like to just remind you of one, because she is my environmental justice champion. Her name is Hazel Johnson. Hazel Johnson was a tireless effort, a tireless voice in our effort to achieve social justice. Where did she work? In the south side of Chicago. She worked on everything from asbestos removal to just organizing communities to actually speak for themselves in an area that had very low-income folks that desperately needed their voices to be heard. One of the voices that she spoke to, one of the ears she spoke to is a better way to put it, was a young activist a long time ago who sort of got the bug. He knew that community work was great, and he kept reaching for more and more ability to address those communities, and that young man's name was Barack Obama. So if you think that by speaking together, by working together, you will not be able to actually have your voices heard, you are dead flat wrong. We can have our voices heard. We are having our voices heard. I would argue that we have never had a president that embraced our environmental challenges more effectively, that put it in front of his agenda more than President Barack Obama. The time is now to take advantage of that. So while you may get worried about, oh, EPA's in the spotlight, EPA's in the spotlight, I'm glad we are. Because we have an opportunity to do two things. We have an opportunity to shine the light on how well EPA has done its mission for 43 years, and we have an opportunity to shine the light on the work that is left that we need to tackle ahead. And there is no work that is more important than to focus on where our voices are needed the most. So if we work together, we can move mountains that in the past had seemed insurmountable. We've done it before, we can do it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cecil.
We're going to have you take a picture with Peggy.